Calling the meeting to order. There were no votes taken during executive session. I'll entertain a motion to seal the executive session minutes pursuant to applicable provisions of Rhode Island General Laws, Section 42-46, subsections 4 and 5. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye.
Aye.
I'd like to take a small moment to acknowledge a big loss in our community here in East Providence, especially our school district. Miss Mildred Morris, also known as Millie, recently passed away. I like to acknowledge the hard work and dedication and passion that she dedicated to the city, but especially the schools here in East Providence. She was part of constructions for multiple schools here, was a part of the school committee and also a chairwoman of the school committee. Her passion continued until her very last days. She is someone that I admire dearly and considered a friend, and she's leaving a very big hole in this community. And I think many of us will be missing her dearly. I'll open it up to anyone else up here that would like to potentially say anything else before we do a moment of silence for Millie.
I'll briefly say that even though I didn't know Millie too well, I met her a few times briefly, but through those times I can definitely say that she was one of the most positive people that I've ever met, and I think anyone who's met her would agree with that. And I've heard countless stories about her many contributions to our school district over the past years, and so I'm very appreciative of anybody who cares about our schools in East Providence and dedicates their time to our schools. And so I'm very appreciative of everything that she has done, and to everyone who is a friend of Millie's or a loved one, you have a space in my heart right now.
If there's no other words, if we could please stand up and do a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance now. Apologies. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item, please.
Next item is the consent agenda.
Are there any comments or questions regarding the consent agenda? Okay. before we go on to do a motion for item number 6, invoices for services, will Mr. Enos kindly come up and give us a kind of brief overview of that invoice? We discussed this at the building committee last night, but
Sure.
yeah.
At last night's meeting, we had one meeting. Last night, it was just the building committee for the high school here. We had Steve DeVell from Gilbane was present. He reviewed the open item list, which is approximately about 15 items. There are some more items that will probably appear on that list as a result of the walkthrough that happened last week. So we'll probably see some more items come up on that list, but we discussed the progress on where some of those items were. Probably one of those last items being the fence out back by the light pole. So the ornamental fence has been ordered, and that probably won't be in until November. But one of the other issues that we talked about in the approval of the invoices, as usual, AI3 had their invoice and Peregrine Group had their invoice as well. Gilbane had an invoice in there as well, and that was for about $315,000. Part of that included a release of retainage to Di Gregorio in the amount of $182,815. That still leaves $400,000 in retainage on the table for Di Gregorio. So the building committee approved that payment last night, pending the discussion and approval of the Tuesday morning work group that we had. The Tuesday morning work group, we met this morning, first thing, and we agreed with the release of the $182,000 in retainage. So that invoice for Gilbane is approved by both the building committee and the Tuesday morning subcommittee, and is ready to be approved tonight. Okay, thank you.
So this wouldn't require the conditional aspect of the motion then for the Gilbane?
So, yeah, for this
Or
vote,
just,
no.
okay,
No.
just pursuant to
Yeah.
the recommendation?
So just to bring the group, so last night, we did 2 motions. We did a motion to approve AI3 and Peregrine, and then we did a separate motion to approve Gilbane, pending the approval of the Tuesday morning subgroup that met. So
we're all set?
So we are good. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Having that information now, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is Superintendent's Report, Dr. Frand.
So I'll start with the facilities update. We have been very busy this summer. To date, 6 of the school buildings have been completely cleaned and are ready to start the school year. The other 6 buildings are in process. All of those other 6 buildings either had summer programming or they have construction going on right now. So they are scheduled over the next couple of weeks to be completed. And we have teams out working on the buildings. So this summer, we have had 7 separate construction projects taking place in the district, and they are all in various stages of completion right now. We have the windows being replaced at Silver Spring. We anticipate a completion date of August 18th. Olo Elementary window replacement is significantly complete as of Friday. We will be, they're working to put the punch list together for that. Riverside Middle School window replacement, they met today, and the preliminary work is being done on that project. Over the next 18 months, that will be completed. And then the Martin renovation, if you've been by the school, there's a lot of enabling work going on in the site to get us ready to open that building at the end of August. We have put out an initial communication to families. We will be communicating with the neighbors with flyers next week. And we spoke with the police department too to put a traffic plan in place. Right now, the work being done is the main office is being moved from the north side of the building to the south side of the building where the pre-K was. There's a wall that has to be put up in the cafeteria that they're working on, and then some site work outside. So we expect that to be complete by the 18th of August. We had the Hennessy smokestack demolition, which was completed July 28th, and the Silver Spring smokestack demolition and the brick restoration will be completed by this Friday. And then the Oldham classroom reconfiguration is ongoing. And we also had a trailer that was brought to the site that will be used for offices for some of our support services. So that's on site now. So a lot going on, but all progressing as it should with no expected delays at this point. Okay. Craig has the finance update.
Yeah, so I haven't been before you in a bit, but there were just a couple line items that I just wanted to point out for your knowledge, because I just think it's good for you to be aware. So on the first page within the 51,000 series, so for severance, account 51322, we budgeted 35,000, and year to date we've spent over 65,000. So we have, within our bargaining units, there is, depending upon your union that you're in, you get a severance payout when you retire, and we've also had a number of teachers from way back when, going back into the 90s, that have a piece of paper that says that they're entitled to a certain dollar amount. But we've had a lot of people who have retired, so that's why that number's a little bit high. Same thing, a couple lines down with the sick payoff, line 51332. We budgeted 100,000. We've spent over 160,000. So we have many of the retirees who have left who had well over 100 days worth of sick days, and so per their bargaining unit agreements, they get $75 a day. So that's why when you look at that number, you look at so high. We've had a lot of people who have had many sick days that we have had to pay out. And then finally, on the very last page, just wanted to point out in account 58206 for the legal claims. Every once in a while, it doesn't happen a lot, but every once in a while there could be something there's some type of a legal settlement that happens, and that's where we code it. So that's why you don't see we have zero budgeted there, but we've spent $6,300 to date. So I just wanted to point those couple lines out to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Jen, can I just back up one item for Sandy? Sandy, can we just state publicly that that trailer is not gonna be used for a classroom? Because that was, if you can just clarify that, thank you for that.
It's an office space.
It's gonna be office.
Yep.
And one other thing, if we can just, into Martin's done, just if we can secure that construction site, I mentioned, but I'm getting a lot of calls that that construction site isn't being secured at the end of the day.
Okay.
So if you want, I can go over that with you.
Yep.
But there are fences there that's supposed to be in place every day. Once they put it up, they just pushed it one side, and I'm being told it's never been put back up. So, if we can just mention to,
Yep.
you know, Danny, I know Chris on vacation, the contract.
Yep, Danny went there this morning to discuss something, so I can fill him in tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other additional questions or comments regarding any part of the superintendent's report, facilities or finance? Okay. Next item, please.
Next item is building committee report.
So I gave you a brief update, what happened last night for the high school building project. As you're aware, next week we have a joint meeting of the school committee and the building committee for the school district. And there's a lot of activity that's going to be happening that night. And we needed to devote one night just because there's so much information that's going to be reviewed. So we're going to be discussing Martin and the 60% CD Stage 3 submission that we have to submit to RIDE. So we'll be reviewing that with you, and we'll be asking you to vote on that. For Waddington, we're going to be reviewing the Design Development Stage 3 submission that we'll be giving to RIDE. We need you to vote on that as well. We also have the AIA A133-8201 contract with Shawmut that we will be giving to you for your review, and as well as asking you to vote on that contract for all of the work that's currently been going on. It's been going back and forth between legal, and so it'll be ready for you for your review and your approval. We also will be asking you for approval of a working group. So just like the Tuesday morning working group that we have currently in existence for the high school that allows us to make decisions on a quicker path, we're going to be asking to nominate some folks to be on that group as well, and asking for your approval on that as well. And then the final piece of information for the night will be the project labor agreement. That will be there for you to review, and is also for you to vote on to show that indeed that, you know, we need to move forward with a project labor agreement for the Martin project. And that's it. Thank you.
Jack, can I ask you a question?
Thank you. Yes.
I just have a question under the building project. Are all the building projects on financial status where we should be at this point? Or do you see any overcost, any?
No, we are, with regards to Martin, so that's still being fine-tuned. So it's still, we're still cutting and coming up with what the alternate lists are.
No, more towards like the window projects, like, you know, always like, you know, probably 95% done. Silver Spring, nothing's been coming in.
No.
So we did have one change order.
We had two change orders. So one was for Orlo, for that piece that needed to be wrapped around the poles. That was a small amount of money. And then for Silver Spring, once they took the windows out, the bottom, the concrete, I'm going to say, or cement that was there was all rotted, and it was crumbling. So they're fixing that. So but that was $30,000 at most. So that's it. So we're in good shape with both those projects.
Can you just send that to the school committee if there's, you know, both in a?
Absolutely.
It's in your packet. It's under the maintenance report, both of the dollar amounts and the reason for the changes.
For those
for those two projects. Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
So, at least like specifically for the Arlo project, when you get the punch list, if there are any like notable items on there, is there a way that we could be sent the punch list just to see what the remaining items are?
Any other questions or comments from the committee in regards to the building committee report? Thank you. Next item, please.
Next is discussion items.
So, Ms. Bouchane had a family emergency, but I will go over the policy as well. She is out today. The dress code policy, I did receive a request from Max in regards to additional language. So that is the change you saw in there, and then the rest of it was just basically formatting. There was one question that I was asked, or was told that Jessica would have asked had she been here. Is there any concern regarding the strapless guidance? Like how strict would that be reinforced? Like, is it just if it's peeking through a shirt, if it's like a spaghetti strap and a bra strap, like a tank top strap, and then like your bra strap is showing, or is that something that overall won't be something that will be an issue, I guess, for?
Yeah, it just says it can't be strapless.
Yeah.
So there's no definition, like as long as it has some sort of straps.
Okay, so so I guess I was looking more of the undergarments be visible. So I'm assuming like it can't be like you can see the entirety of like the bottom part of the bra, but I wasn't sure if the undergarments visible applied to like the straps itself, like if there's like any sort of leeway for that, like if it's peeking through a shirt or something, like a razorback tank top.
Right, there's professional judgment too.
Yeah.
Like I think also that prevents sagging pants and, you know.
Okay.
I know that part falls under tops, but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I figured it would leave it up to discretion,
Right.
but yeah, that's why I wasn't sure like if like a razorback would be an issue basically, and if, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments regarding the proposed dress code policy with the additional changes made?
I just had one quick comment, and actually, first of all, just to specify too, the request that I made was for the last sentence in the first paragraph, in case anyone was wondering, but also, if we do approve this tonight, can we get this updated on the website under our policies, if possible? Okay. Yeah, just so that way there's enough time for families to be aware, because obviously there's parents who still need to do like clothes shopping for their children, so.
Will this make it in time for the, I guess, printed copy, or is that not something we really do because it's already on our website?
It's usually included in the student code of conduct that's sent home.
Okay.
I'm assuming they've held, or they can replace it. If not, we'll do like an addendum to it.
Okay. Just an update on if that will be an addendum or if we'll be able to catch it in time before it's sent to.
I think it depends on the buildings, whether they've been printed or not.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay. Any sort of update on?
So would this go on the website as its own standalone policy, or would it be part of the code of conduct?
So for this, it would actually, it would go under the code of conduct itself, and then there's a subsection for dress code.
Okay.
There, also to clarify, because the original dress code did have a language for phone use that is not in here as we can see, but that is still being worked on by the administration. I assume that's still the case.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're meeting this week.
So that will be up for, that will be presented to us whenever it's completed, but figured that update will be helpful since it is a change from the current code that we have and this one. Any questions or comments?
Just one last question. So if we do approve this tonight, would there be enough time to ensure that we make all of our staff aware of these changes to the dress code so that way they can enforce it correctly when the time comes?
It'll go out in the family newsletter, which will
Okay.
go out next week, and it'll go out in the staff newsletter.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of circle back to, there was a committee that was put in place, correct, to go over these policies, and I was wondering if maybe you could just clarify, someone could just clarify what the biggest noticeable differences are. You know, I'm not sure if it's even worth requesting someone might just read this out loud for, you know, public listening in right now. I think that was requested at the last meeting, but it's a short policy, and just kind of discuss a little bit about what the biggest differences are of, you know, in the policy changes.
Sure. I can read it unless someone wants to
That'd be great.
take it away. All right. Students should be able to dress in a manner that expresses their individuality without fear of unnecessary discipline or body shaming while maintaining the integrity and safety of the school environment. Students and staff are responsible for managing their own personal distractions. To ensure effective and equitable enforcement of this dress code, school staff shall enforce the dress code consistently and in a manner that does not reinforce or increase marginalization or oppression of any group based on race, sex, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, cultural observance, household income, or body type / size, period. Tops must not be strapless, cover the torso, be to the belly button or lower, and not have undergarments visible. Next bullet point is hoods up or hats are not to be worn in schools in order to ensure safety while considering religious requirements or medical needs. Next bullet point, pants, shorts, skirts, and dresses must be visible, cover your bottom, not be pajamas, and not have undergarments visible. Next bullet point, students may wear all shoes except slippers. And then section below that is articles of clothing may not have designs or wording. Bullet point, which are obscene or vulgar. Next bullet point is refer to illicit substances, including but not limited to alcohol or drugs. Or next bullet point, and it's the last one, is depict any form of violence or hate speech. And that's the entirety of the dress code. In my understanding too, from the class I got to sit in with Max, that addition in regards to the effective and equitable enforcement, that was pretty clear, that they really wanted to feel like, you know, they were not being targeted and they would be, you know, respected. And so I think that definitely addresses that big concern from the students, especially from the class that we got to sit in. So, and it's a lot less, I think, restrictive from our previous policy as well. In regard, you know, it doesn't say, you know, specifically like the length of the shorts, for example. That seemed to be a pretty consistent feedback that Jessica had mentioned previously. So as long as, you know, people are covered up is basically the mission of this policy, and as long as, you know, they're, you know, presentable, I think is kind of the goal of the code, is as long as you're covered up and, you know, safety is also taken into consideration for themselves and safety of others. I think it covers the necessary aspects of what a dress code needs to cover.
Yeah, thank you. And also, could you just remind who sat on this committee to put this policy together?
I'll let our superintendent take that one.
So I don't know if I can name everyone that was on the committee off the top of my head, but Diana Clarkin, Stacy Messier, Dean at Hennessy, Sarah Duart, Dean at the high school, Julie, Jean Giulio, principal at Riverside, chaired the committee. Lori Marchand, principal at Martin Middle School. No, Corey Holland, Dean at Waddington. Is that it?
I mean, just a variety of
Yeah.
educational leaders in our district
Different
from
grade levels.
elementary, middle, and high
Yep.
school level. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other additional comments or questions regarding the dress code?
And just to clarify, does this eliminate, because it doesn't mention it, the rule where, where quarters 1 and 4 students could only wear certain clothing versus in quarters 2 and 3?
Yes, it completely replaces the existing dress code, so all of that will come out.
Okay. Thank you.
Jenny, one last thing. I did just want to share just a final thought about how this change of policy came across, because there were educators and students who wanted to express their voice and invited members of the school committee and members of the educational leadership staff here at the high school to come and listen to their thoughts and opinions. They put policies together. They compared policies from other school districts, and I think it's definitely something that is led by the voice of students. I think it's a good example of how students in our district have the opportunity to enact the changes they want to see themselves. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'd also like to add, if it's possible, whenever the next meeting is that we have a shout out, if we could do one for Miss Cornier and her class of students from the previous school year for basically bringing this idea to us and pushing us to follow through with it. I think they'd really be happy to see the finished product and know that it happened because of their initial input.
No, definitely, and I think we'll be able to definitely have them come in as the process goes, or at least by the time that we have a second read for the phone, at least the phone policy it'll be the school year by that point. So it'll definitely be something I think we can continue to make sure that they get acknowledgement for their hard work. So definitely in agreement with both of what you both said. Next policy that we have on here is a policy on standards regarding food service procurements. Thank you.
As part of our food service audit that we had this past year, which we were one of the largest, we were one of the few that had it done for this year, first time since COVID, throughout the state. And RIDE has hired a private company to do a separate procurement review. Now for us, that was pretty easy because we accessed the pricing through the statewide contract that they had negotiated with Chartwell's. However, this language, which I got, what came strictly from the company that RIDE hired, and they're asking us just to incorporate this language about food service procurement within our purchasing policy, and all of the other districts in the state will be incorporating the same language because everyone who's now having their audits been reaching out to me for it. So just asking you for your first read and your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? Thank you, Mr. Rinos. Next policy we have on here is the East Providence Police Department access to the East Providence School Department's video. And I'll loop that in along with the MOU regarding the police body cameras, as well as the MOU for access to the video feeds as well. Would the superintendent would like to do the overview, or I can do it too? Okay. The police department presented and requested the following policies and MOUs with the school department. Currently, the process in the police department in gaining access to our surveillance is that they have to request that directly from the superintendent. Currently, there is no policy where if there were to be like an exigent circumstance, such as, God forbid, a school shooting, there is no policy in place as to what would happen in that case if they need that access. And because of there being certain instances where time is of the essence, the following policies were presented to provide a guidance as to when they can have access to that surveillance in the event of an emergency of that matter. But for any other events where they may need to have that access, the process is still to contact the superintendent to access, or to confirm that they have the access to whatever surveillance that they may need to get. Currently, they do have access to that. The police department has a login that is specifically the police department's login, and there's also logins for different administrators as well. And there's a log in that system, and it keeps track of when that login specifically is used. So there is some language in the policy as well in regards to kind of trying to keep the superintendent informed when they have gone into the surveillance to revise anything. I mean, we always anticipate that there is going to be some communication with the superintendent, but that's just a way to make sure that the superintendent is always being informed in the event that they do have to access it for whatever emergency.
Yeah, they currently do not have access to our live video feed. So this policy is in an emergency, giving them that access. And we've worked extensively with the police department and the city legal and our legal to make sure that, we were clear on what the terms were. So this would allow them to access it only in an emergency.
And in addition to the surveillance, there's the police body cameras. Again, in the interest of privacy for not just our students, but as well as the staff in that building. It's being requested that those body cameras be turned off unless, again, there is an emergency that they have been contacted at that specific school where they can then turn it on. Again, it's mostly for making sure that there is a procedure so the police is able to do their job in the case of an emergency where lives are potentially in danger, and then it also provides that safety for privacy for, again, the students, them being minors, and then the staff as well. So.
And this is, I'm sure most of you know, this is new to the police department. The body cameras they've just recently started using the body cameras in East Providence. So this is why we initiated the MOU, just so we're clear on the terms.
Does that include SROs as well?
It does. So, and you can see in the MOU, it basically would only be turned on if there was a incident where they had to respond in a law enforcement manner. So daily interactions, those cameras would not be on.
So we are looking at this is a proposal of a policy that doesn't exist.
That's correct.
So essentially, page 2 point B, paragraph 1, if the EP Police, as part of an official police action, determines that an exigent event has or is occurring, the EP Police may access the video feeds only through the department's video software via the secure pathway by entering a username and password assigned by the department. That is not currently happening.
It is not.
And that is what we're proposing will happen.
Yes.
And this similar, page 3, line E, SRO body cameras, paragraph 1, East Providence police officers shall not maintain automatic activation of body cameras mode or maintain activated body cameras while serving in the capacity as an SRO in East Providence Public Schools unless they are responding to a law enforcement related incident or emergency call within the school, or if the officer determines that such activation is reasonably necessary in any exigent circumstance.
Correct.
So those are the two, basically those are the two proposals
Correct.
in the policy, the two big hitters, right?
Yep. We have not had a policy that has governed any of this.
Do we have
to date,
any,
so-
we have zero policy on the books for law enforcement to access any of our cameras right now?
Nope. Nope, and that's why, I mean, we've been working with the city on this for a while. And we didn't have the technology that we have now in the past. So, you know, I think with the building of the new building and all of the, we just upgraded the cameras in every building. I think it, you know, it's become accessible now.
Yeah.
If there's an emergency, where before we didn't have that.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important to be able to grant that access, especially in times of emergency, you know, going back to you know, point B, accessing to district video surveillance systems. If they're sitting around waiting for passcodes and permissions, I mean, clocks tick really quickly in emergencies. So I think that's, these are really important policies to really look through and push through.
Any other questions or comments regarding any of the MOUs or the policy? It's only for first read too, so if any, well, the policy is only up for first read, so if there's any, you know, additional language or questions or anything, I myself or even our attorney is available. He and him have been discussing the policy a lot, so that's also a resource that's available to the rest of the committee as well.
Just one quick question, kind of as like food for thought. So, in the event where there was an emergency situation and the East Providence police needed assistance and would contact neighboring city police departments, would they also be abiding by similar information in this policy?
Yeah, so our police department would be in charge of the scene, and they see this as accessing it through probably dispatch or the officer in charge, so that, you know, if there was ever something, they would have real-time sight of the scene and would be able to direct officers that are on the scene to whatever area they need to go to and to whatever is occurring on the site. So it would be coming from the police department. That's where they would be accessing the video more than likely. And, I mean, we would have access to it on site too, so at that point they would be accessing it with us if need be.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding the policy or MOU? Okay. And next we have the proposed 2024 school budget presentation. Are you going to be using the, okay. If the committee members would like to sit on the front row to be able to watch.
So tonight we are We're going to go through this presentation on the school budget. This is the result of 3 workshops with the school committee. I think it was about 9 hours of workshops, not to mention the extensive number of hours that we've worked to put the budget together for the school committee's approval, and for the school committee to provide feedback and make changes to. So this is the result of the last budget meeting that we had. Next slide, please. So these are the district's overall goals for this academic year, which is academic, and this came out of our strategic plan, academic and excellence for all students, social emotional learning to support academic learning, educators focused on continuous learning, and family and community engagement. So when we crafted this budget, those were the driving factors in where we wanted to invest our resources. Next slide. So as you can see, our enrollment since the 2020-2021 school year has been increasing. We are one of 5 districts in the entire state that has seen an increase in enrollment. And I can tell you today, I received 7 new registrations for the high school alone, not to mention 4 for middle schools and multiple for elementary. So we are still seeing students register daily. And from all over the place. So today, just because I saw it before this, we had students from Cape Verde, California, Florida, a charter school, Providence, and the Dominican Republic all register today for the high school. So we are seeing registration from everywhere. And that was just today, the ones that we received. So as I said, you can see that our enrollment continues to increase, and hopefully we will see an increase in state aid next year based on that. Next slide, please. So this was as of July. When we started the budget workshops, our overall projected enrollment. Again, students come and go every day, so we won't really know exact numbers. It's ever changing, this document, but we're looking at right now over 1,700 in the high school, 1,134 in the middle schools, and 2,107 in the elementary schools, and approximately 96 students that are placed out of district right now. Next slide. As with our enrollment increasing, so have our number of special education students. You can see a steady increase since the 2021 school year. Right now we have 1,108 for special education students. And one of the other slides after will show you that as we were putting this together, we had 134 students that were in the referral process. So that also continues to increase. So next slide. Out-of-district placements, you'll see that's probably, well, that's one of our largest line items, and we talked about this at our budget workshops. So out of our students that are in out-of-district placements, 58 of them have been placed there by our own IEP teams. 54 students this year were ESSA conferences. Those are students that are placed in foster homes, and then they might be in foster homes outside of East Providence but continue to stay in East Providence schools, or it could be the other way around. They could be placed in foster homes in East Providence. They could attend East Providence schools, or they could go back to their school of origin. So out of those students, ESSA East Providence placements, students that are attending our schools from other foster homes, it's 21. And then ESSA out-of-district placements, so students that are in foster care that are in outside placements, we have 5 students. DCYF residential, and we talked about this, it's students that are in state care placements. They're determined by DCYF, and the LEA, East Providence, does not have any involvement in the decision-making on where these students are placed. So currently, we have 14 students that are placed in residential placements. They're in various locations throughout the country, actually, and East Providence is responsible for the tuitions on those placements. Some are upwards of $100,000 per placement. So those are some of the driving costs behind the large numbers of out-of-district placements. And then we have Craft, which is the Bradley residential placement, and this changes daily. It is not a group home, it is not a foster home, it is not a DCYF placement. It is parental choice to place students at Craft, and we currently have 6 students that are in out-of-district placements that East Providence is responsible for the tuition. Next slide, please. So as we looked at personnel changes this year, we have reduced some positions. We, because of the combining of the 2 pre-Ks, we eliminated a secretary position at the pre-K, and that secretary was relocated. We have eliminated a resource teacher at the high school. We had a transitional K class at Francis that we've eliminated. There was a bubble class, so we eliminated the 5th grade teacher at Francis. There were 3, there's 2 now. It's a very small class, and that was added back in at the 4th grade level. We eliminated the SEL facilitator position, and we eliminated a school psychologist position. Next slide. So additions included in the budget. So our MLL population has been steadily increasing over the years. As you can see, from 2019 to 2023, we've had 56 new MLL students, a 28% increase. So we needed to add a teacher at Riverside and a teacher at the high school. We also did get an increase in MLL categorical money, which can only be used for professional development. So we did receive that increase, and we have planned for that additional funding, but it doesn't help with the general budget. We added 1 instructional coach at the middle school that will split the 2 middle schools. Both of our middle schools received 1-star ratings this year, so we really feel as if we need additional support there, and it's also aligned to the strategic plan. And those instructional coaches will focus on all 4 of those goals that we have in the district plan. We added the 4th grade teacher, as I just mentioned, and we recently needed to add a science teacher at East Providence High School. We had 68 students additional anticipated, and we also needed to add a foreign language teacher just recently. So I believe it was over 100 students that we did not have scheduled for science because we didn't have enough seats for them. And then we're also running into the same situation with foreign language, which has now become a graduation requirement. Next slide. So some of the highlights for cost increases for the 2023-24 budget. So we have seen a $764,000 increase to our health care. This is going to be ongoing. We had this cost increase last year. We anticipate this cost increase again next year. It is a significant increase, and it is due, as we've mentioned, to a particular prescription claim that we're faced with. So it is a significant amount of our budget each year that we're seeing an increase in the health care. Salary increases, 1.34 million in salary increases approximately, and those are contractually required in all of the unions. And then we have seen a $987,000 transportation increase. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we have approximately 6.5 million in out-of-district placement, and this number fluctuates as students move in and move out. So this is always a line item. We've brought it to your attention several times during the year when things have fluctuated, but that is what we're anticipating for next year. As I mentioned, of that 6.5 million, 1.5 million of that is determined by DCYF without input from East Providence, and those are for residential placements. And then just to give you an idea, our total transportation costs are $7 million. So this is not only like busing in district, this is busing for those ESSA placements that are outside of district. This is McKinney-Vento, so homeless busing that we have to do for students that might be staying somewhere else. So all of that comes to about $7 million. Next slide. So we talked some about the facilities updates that we have been making around the district. So we have continued to really make sure that our facilities are up to par. These are some of the projects that have been completed over this summer or are in the process. We talked about the chimneys, we talked about the windows at the 3 schools, the renovations to Oldham, Riverside, and Waddington, the Martin Building Project. We have replaced all of the student desks and chairs at RMS, and lighting and sound upgrades in the Riverside Middle School auditorium. So these are all either in process or, most of them are in process. A couple of them are completed. Next slide, please. So some of our maintenance priorities would be our building management system, which we're estimating to be between $400,000 and $500,000, which controls all the heat and air conditioning in our buildings. We need to invest in that system. This past winter we had some issues with the univents at some of the schools. So that is also on our list of priorities, replacing the univents at White Neck, Silver Spring, Orlo, and Oldham, and we estimate that to be about $378,000. Boiler replacement at Myron J. Francis, another $130,000, and then Oldham roof repairs, which we estimate at approximately $1 million. So those are some of the upcoming costs that we'll need to incur for building repairs. Next slide, please. So we also discussed in our budget workshops that we continue to fund some of our line items through our ESSER funding. Those included summer school staffing this year. We had a behavior consultant. I believe that has been moved into the budget. Will we, some of that? No. All right, so that remains in ESSER. All of our web-based software, our school construction has come out of ESSA funding, our custodial supplies, the additional substitute compensation that the committee had approved, and then our ESY program are all currently being funded through our ESSA money. So something that we'll need to look at for next year when that September of 2024, that funding source will end. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed budget that the committee had landed on when we met throughout the budget workshop. So I'm going to let Craig hit any of the highlights that we've spoke about.
Sure. So this is, Alfred, if you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this remains to be the product of all of the 3 meetings that we have. So on the far right-hand side for the fiscal year 24 budget, we are projecting salaries at $53,934,555. The next slide, please, Alfred. Moving on to the 52,000 series. So for the benefits, no change from when we last met, $23,315,603. As Dr. Ferran had said, that $1 million prescription claim that we have is going to remain with us for quite a while. So we can predict every year going forward, that we're going to be having significant increases to our healthcare costs. The next slide, please, Alfred. So the 53,000 series, so the professional and technical services. The one item that was changed here is account 53410 for the police. We had talked at the last budget workshop about adding in $120,000 to cover the school resource officer. So that's where that line item lives in there. And so for 53,000 series, Alfred, to the next slide, please. $1,815,000. The next slide, please. So the 54,000 series for property, services. The only real major change in this line, in this account, just to point out again, is in 54,312 maintenance service contracts. We have a contract with a private company who helps to groom and maintain all of the fields. And also, just as a little side note, we are required by RIDE every year to show that we're spending at least 3% of our budget on all the maintenance for our school department buildings. So we really do take very good care of our buildings, but we need to ensure that within all of the budgets for the maintenance side of life that we are taking care of them. So for the 54,000 series, $674,000. Next slide, please. For the 55,000 series, other services, as we've talked about already, accounts 55, 630, 640, and 650. Those are all the special education out-of-district placements that are totaling $6.5 million. Transportation also lives in here. So for the 55,000 series, $15,181,589. So a little bit over $1 million more than last year. And then finally, then continuing on for the next slide, for the supplies for the 56,000 series, no changes for what we had talked about. So $2,183,000. Next slide, please, to the 57,000 series for the property. You can see in here, we did not change any of those line items. We just have two for equipment and furniture and fixtures totaling $50,000. As Dr. Ferrand had said, you know, all of the construction work that we're doing right now, particularly over at RMS, that's being funded through the ESSER 3 grant. And then lastly, for the 58,000 series, for the miscellaneous fees that we have, all of our dues and fees, $82,000. So that would bring our total budget for expenditures, the next slide please, to $97,235,747. Expenses are nice to look at, but we need to look at what the revenue is. So the next slide, please. So for revenue, this is, again, based upon the workshops that we had. We were going to be asking the city for the maximum that we could ask for, and that was 4%, $2,123,638. So this takes into consideration that the local fund appropriation for next year would be $55,214,588. Our state aid went up by approximately $922,000. So we're looking at state aid at $39,026,159. The tuition, you can see this current year budget at $1.2 million. And due to the slight increase in student enrollment from out of district, and as well as the increase for what the tuition rates are that we can charge, that's budgeted at $1,450,000. Rental income, due to the fact that this high school building is really being used quite a lot, and based upon what the year to date, what we have received, we're budgeting that for $125,000. And then finally, just to hit, for the Medicaid, so we get reimbursement every year. Actually, every quarter we get it for all of the services that we provide, a little bit over $1.2 million. So we are proposing. So the revenue budget, $97,235,747, a balanced budget based upon what we had discussed during the 3 budget workshops.
Next slide, please. So this is 48% is what the City of East Providence municipal budget contribution to the school department is. And then below you'll see the different communities that surround us and what their municipal contribution to the school department budget is. Next slide, please. And as you can see, this 3, 6, 7, over the last 7 years, these have been our requests to the city. So you can see the appropriation amount, the change amount, and the percent change. So we had several years where we came in asking for very little. In 2021, we only asked for 0.6%. So, and then 1.3% in 2022, and then last year we received 3.8% increase to the budget. Next slide, please. So recently we met with the mayor to discuss the overall city budget, and the mayor requested that the school department reduce our budget request by $211,107. So this is the only change since the last workshop, so we are presenting this to the committee tonight. In that agreement, we were, as Mr. Enos said, we were funding the second SRO at the high school. The city has agreed to include the SRO in their budget, so that would be a decrease in our budget of $120,000. We were also able to update the salary line item based on new hires and retirements, so we were able to reduce the salary line item by $65,751,000, and along with that, we were able to reduce healthcare benefits by $25,356, which brings us to the requested $211,107, if the council chooses to vote that way. And you have that additional information in your packets in front of you. So that would bring the total budget to $97,024,640 based on these changes if they're implemented. And I think that's the last slide. So does anyone have questions? Do you want?
Any
want us to read?
questions or comments from the committee? Just one question on my end, sorry, I don't know why it's making that noise. My understanding was that that was gonna be a 60,000 reduction, not a 211 reduction. So I wasn't sure if there was recent discussions.
No, when we walked out of that meeting, he asked us for the 211,107. And minus the SRO officer.
Right.
So the SRO officer was included in our budget. So of that 211,000, the 120 came off because that was moved to the city budget. And then it was an additional approximately 90,000 that he had asked us to remove from the budget.
Okay, because my understanding was that it was just 60,000.
Yeah, no,
That was,
That's not.
did we confirm that it's 211?
yeah, so I checked my notes, because I did write that number down, and it was 211,107, and then he said minus the 120. I don't know where the 68 came from, but that matches the 211,107.
That's what they had said they needed from the school department in concessions.
Okay, but we haven't confirmed since then, though. Besides the notes.
Not since Saturday.
Not since
This
the
was
notes,
Saturday, and
okay.
we worked on it Monday.
Okay, because my understanding was that it was 60,000. That's why. So that's yeah.
I mean, we can.
So that's why I'm confused by the 211,000 reduction.
Yeah, we can
But-
ask, but that's what Craig and I both walked away with, was 200, that they
Yeah.
needed a savings of 211,107 from us, and that they would pick up the funding for the SRO, and we would make up the other 90,000 in the budget.
If we can just double check that,
Yeah.
though, because
Yeah, it's a difference of 30,000.
Yeah,
We could
no,
definitely
it's a-
find,
it's
if that's,
no,
if they
it's-
only need
it's-
60, we could definitely find 30 to place
no,
back in.
but
Yeah.
that was my
Yeah.
understanding, is that he came down from the 211. That was my understanding. So now I'm not sure if he's also understanding that it's the 211 and not the 60.
Does the reduced budget include the money that we won't be paying for the SRO position that would now be getting picked up by the city?
So your revised budget, which has yellow on top, well, does it? No, it doesn't, because we had trouble with the copier today. So it's black and white. The revised budget includes removing the $120,000 for the SRO, and then making up the additional amount that we interpreted that the city needed in it. So that the revised budget goes to $97,024,640 from $97,235,747 was the original, what we came out of the budget committee.
Us not paying for that SRO position anymore, that would count towards the $211,000 we
Correct.
need to reduce it by?
Correct.
So what would that number be?
So it leaves us $90,000. It's the salaries and the health benefits.
All right, and then just one more question that I'd like clarification on. So we'd be requesting a 3.8% increase when our maximum would be 4%, right?
That's correct.
And so hypothetically, if we did that, then next year, if we wanted to request the maximum, which would be 4%, we could only request 4% on top of the 3.8% that we got this year.
Correct.
So that would kind of have like a little bit of like a long-term impact of like putting us back like $211,000 or so each year, even if we request the maximum every year, unless the law was changed to increase that that percentage amount that we could request.
Correct.
So do we know like what that budgetary impact would be over the course of like 5 years or so?
I don't have that. No. And I mean, the SRO is, it's technically, the SRO we were responsible for, we're not responsible for anymore. So that was $120,000 savings. If we weren't responsible for the SRO and we wanted to go for the 4%, that $120,000 was back. It would be in the budget, if that makes sense. Yep. It is now. He's agreed to take that into the city budget. Any other questions?
Just to reiterate, even though we'd be getting a 3.8% budget increase, we'd still technically have less money than we did the previous year because of our increase in expenses.
It's actually 3.6% would be the increase. With the removal of the 211,000, it becomes a 3.6% increase. So yes, it impacts the dollar amount that we can ask for going forward, because we can always ask for 4% of the overall budget. So if we reduce the budget, the amount of money next year that we can ask for in an increase becomes less. That is correct.
How much of an adjustment would it be to be at a 3.8 then, if we're still trying to not limit ourselves for the following year? Do we know how much that number would be?
0.6 to the 0.8%.
Going up a point.
Yeah, if we can go up a 0.2.
Yeah, so,
My guess is, it's probably around the 90,000, right?
Correct, exactly, yeah.
It's probably.
Well, because I'm thinking long-term now, obviously. I I know that we need to be considerate of our impact on the city side, and I think we've done that by opening up the table to discussion. But I know that this is new. The fact that it would affect our requests for the following year, and I don't want to put us in that position, especially since ESSER is going to be leaving September of 2024. So I definitely think, at least my thought, I'm speaking for myself, at least a 0.2 to still kind of have the mayor, take the SRO off of our budget, and then having that 0.2 to make sure that next year we're not putting ourselves in a tough position, at least. I think I don't see that affecting the SRO or any of the other items being affected if we're able to do that additional point.
You're asking us to put 0.2%.
At least myself. I'll leave it up to the committee.
Back in the budget.
I'll put that up to a vote, but that's where I'm at. I obviously open the floor to anyone, any other additional member up here if they have a different number in mind. That's just my personal concern.
I completely agree.
In agreement with what Max just said about limiting our requests for next year. I don't want to put us in that tough position, especially with ESSER leaving. As we can see that list of items that are not on our list right now in our budget, they're going to be entering our line items now. So to be able to prepare for that, I think a 0.2 is reasonable, and also make sure that we're covering ourselves for the following year.
Right, and I completely agree with that. And if anything, the only reason I would disagree with asking for 3.8% is because I think 4% would be better. But I think just thinking about this long term, like right now, obviously looking at this right here, it looks like it's a really good deal for us because we won't be paying for this SRO position anymore. But if you're looking 10 years down the road, that budget reduction by $211,000 that we would be able to get would affect our maximum budget increase down the road every year going forwards. And I know that would be a very high number if you add the next 10 years together. So
that 0.2% equals to $105,000.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
$105,000 if we are looking to put 0.2% back in the budget. To basically be taking that salary and health benefits and placing that back in another line
That would
item.
reduce the budget.
Little more
If we
than
were to
that.
take it from that would be what, like 100 and, instead of it being 211, how much would that be?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
From the, I want to make sure that I'm not
Yeah,
confusing.
so
It's been a long
if you're
day.
asking us to put that percentage back into the budget, it would be $105,000 that we would add back into the budget.
Yeah.
Now, we've looked at the salaries, we've looked at the benefits. Because of new people coming in, we were able to adjust those line items lower. We would look to put that into some of the line items that we feel we're underfunding.
Okay.
Like some of the ones that we showed you that we're funding through
Yeah.
ESSA that don't have money in the budget currently. We would look to start to add some of those back in, because they will come back next year no matter what. So, I mean, we still feel, and we had this discussion at the workshop, we still feel as if some of our line items are not fully funded. I mean, we were able to move some, some of the big concerns were the support services, speech, OT, and we were able to move money around to increase those line items after, I think, the second workshop. But if you would like us to put that money back in the budget, we can put the $105,000.
And I would recommend, if you're going to put that back in, I'd like to put that in the building improvement line item for 57,202, given the fact that we know that the boiler at Francis, it routinely gives us a hard time. And while 105,000 won't cover all of it, that will get us most of the boiler, and we can find some other savings within the budget for next year that we can cover the extra 25,000 and change.
I fully support that idea.
Could you please talk, how much money will we be looking at going back into the budget coming off of the ESSA grant in September of '24?
So that's gonna be, hang on one second, let me get to that slide. It's about $1 million.
Probably close
Yep.
to between software, summer school,
Custodial
ESY,
supplies.
custodial supplies, all of those line items. I mean, school construction fluctuates, you know,
What about for teacher salaries that are being paid through grant funding that we are expecting to lose the grant funding for in '24? Is that happening as well?
yeah, so the only salaries that we have in ESSA right now, we have those 3 resource teachers that we were hoping to move back into the budget that we couldn't get back into the budget. I think that's it. Those are the only salaries that we're funding through a source that will expire. All of the other grant-funded positions are through grants that are ongoing year to year. It's our CRP, it's our IDEA, so those grants are ongoing. So it's just those 3 positions.
Okay, and so, I mean, I just gotta be clear, I wasn't a part of the conversation that happened with the mayor. This was not at the budget workshop meeting, so I'm trying to put it all together here. So basically, there was a conversation that happened with the mayor going over this budget presentation that involved Jenny, Dr. Frand, and the mayor.
And Craig and Malcolm.
And after going through this again, because the mayor was at our 3rd budget workshop, he requested that we reduce our budget by 211,000. However, we would be taking off the SRO of 120, which we would be paying. And so basically, he asked us to reduce our city contributions
Correct.
by $90,000.
By $90,000.
And we're asking for 2.123?
We were asking for 2.1, and if we change the reduction, if we make the changes that were requested by the city, we'd be asking for 1.9, which is 3.6% out of the maximum
And
ask of
do you
4.
feel confident that with the reduction here, as requested by the mayor, and what you have put together, we would be able to have a successful year with this budget?
So we feel as if we can make it work, knowing that next year we're going to have to, we've been using funding sources that will be ending to supplement the budget. So knowing next year that there are things that are not in this budget that will need to come back into the budget. So, I mean, the numbers that you have, I mean, we have to make work whatever we have to make work. I mean, it's the committee's decision, you know.
So when
How we
you
move
when you say
forward.
that we know that there's going to be items that are going to have to come back into the budget because those funding sources are going to expire, I'm guessing we don't have any sort of financial cushion at all that we can rely on to try and absorb some of that. And so I guess my question would be, do we have any idea of what we'd be cutting basically to get those things that we really need to prioritize back into the budget?
Next year?
Yes.
Not yet. So it'll also depend on state aid next year, which we anticipate an increase in state aid. So hopefully that will absorb some of the cost, especially with the increase in enrollment that we're seeing. We do anticipate that we should see a significant increase in state aid, hopefully.
Okay.
So that will be an additional funding source. I mean, we're writing for every possible grant that we can. We try to maximize every dollar that we can. I mean, every time RIDE comes out with a grant, we write for it pretty much. So we take advantage of all of that. And we've been able to do really amazing things in the district over the last couple of years because of that additional funding. Musical instruments, arts grants to our teachers, all of the construction that you've seen. There's really all the new furniture at Riverside. the Inside Out grant, where we're going to have outdoor classroom space at Orlo and Silver Spring and the pre-K. So, you know, we really do try to take advantage of every grant dollar we can find. You know, so, you know, we'll continue to have to look critically at everything we're spending and set our priorities and make adjustments after this year with the decrease in the ESSER amount.
All right, yeah, because I mean, my only issue with that is if we do approve this reduced budget, then when that funding expires in the future and we have to make cuts, even if it's just a little bit somewhere, none of us know where those cuts will take place, and that makes me kind of feel like uncomfortable to vote for this, in the sense that I'm not going to know what's going to get cut, and I don't, you know what I mean? And I know it's tough. It's a tough decision that we all have to make, but that's just the one thing that I'm not too sure about.
Yeah, it is a difficult situation because we want to be good partners with the city too. They support us. You know, the SRO was moved into the city budget. That's a cost savings of $120,000 for us. So, you know, we do work really well with the city and with the different city departments, and you know, we will be able to make the budget work this year, and then we come back to the table again next year, and you know, we need to look at it. No, the 2 middle schools. Correct. Yep. He does know that. Right. And that's why, like, so, you know, we've talked a lot about the instructional coaches, and we do have an instructional coach that is going to work between the 2 middle schools. We believe that we have that additional salary, at least half of it right now, in another grant, and we're working with RIDE hopefully to get the other half of a coach's salary, so that would cover all the coaches. But again, that aligns with our priorities. We need to provide support to our teachers and our students, and that's where we've really held fast to that because we see it as so important to make sure that we're doing the right things for students in the schools and teachers. You know, so that's one example where we really looked at what are our priorities, what do we believe in as a district, and we made sure that we funded, you know, that position. And we're lucky that recently, you know, we've worked with RIDE and we feel like, you know, we can get additional funding for that. Yeah, we have 3 elementary principals coming on board, and we have a new assistant principal at the high school. And we have a leadership series, so we've also been able to fund through that, some of that through ESSEF, professional development for our principals, and support for our principals. So we've been doing a lot of leadership development and support for principals as part of our strategic plan. So, you know, so that's another area where we're really trying to align what our district goals are with funding sources. You know, so we've really looked at a lot of things when putting this budget together and making sure that, you know, the money is going to where we really need to put it. I mean, we do feel as if it's, you know, it's a strong budget and it reflects our priorities, and we will make it work. We always do. Yeah. Right. Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? All righty, we can resume in our seats, thanks. Next item, please.
Next item is public comments.
Next item, please.
Next item is action items.
All right. First item is consider and vote to approve the administrator's contract. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Next item, consider and vote to approve the dress code policy for the second read.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. So before I ask for a motion to approve the school budget, I know a lot of us are, voiced different opinions regarding the school budget and the proposed reduction as well. I leave it up to the committee members if we would like to start off with just voting the school budget with the mayor's request at the, let me see, 3.6% allocation, or if, I'm not sure if there's any other specific percentage that the committee itself would like to kind of discuss. It's kind of an interesting situation because it's like we should probably vote first with the 3.6% and then go from there, I guess, just because.
So there's no way we could either amend that item or add a new item like tonight with like an updated number?
We can definitely amend it with the percentage that any member up here would like, as long as that member is also making the motion to approve the school budget with, and if you could also specify the percentage, whether it be a 3.6 or a 3.8, I would leave that up to Mr. Enos to work the numbers again and give us the update on that. I'm assuming the numbers would kind of go based off of what was already presented in the presentation, where those would come from. And then that way, if the motion actually includes that percentage amount, that way I think we do this as cleanly as possible, I think.
So we have to vote before we do any of that?
Craig, would you? I'm not sure if we're on a deadline or not.
Yeah, and so then just if you're adding, so what we initially presented with the maximum of the 4%, we needed to present that to you because that's what we had worked on. So, and I think if you're going to change that to whatever, if you're going to go down to the to what the mayor is requesting, we can do that. We've already showed you where the areas where we can make the reductions to meet that request. If it's anything in between that and the 4%, you can do that. You just need to tell us where you want to put the money. So
we can do that as two motions then? We can do or we can do it as a two-parter, I guess. We could do it as here's the percentage and then here's where we would like that additional money that wasn't in here to be allocated to, or we can do that as two separate ones.
I'm sorry, I just need some clarity here. I'm just still a little confused because when we left the budget workshops, we were at the 2.123. That was what we were gonna ask for, that's what we settled.
Right.
Thank you to the public who came out, thank you to the mayor who came out, city council members who showed up. And it seemed like there was just conversations that happened outside of this meeting that now are being presented, and I just need some time to digest, basically. So it seems like what we would be voting on would be the proposed FY 2024 school budget, which would be the 4%. Correct? Or has the budget now been amended already, and y'all are presenting the budget at 3.6? Because you confused me with the last slide.
No.
The last slide really kind of threw me off because it just wasn't what I've been really, digesting for the past 6 weeks.
Right.
So it's just, and when working with y'all on it.
So you have two budgets in front of you. You
Right.
have the initial budget that we walked out of the last budget workshop.
Okay.
Which is the 4%, which
Sure.
is the 2.1 million. That is
Correct.
what we presented everything on tonight. That last slide was the result of us presenting the school department budget to the mayor, who puts together the whole city budget.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
him requesting that we remove 211,000, of which 120 of that he was picking up in his budget by not having us pay for the SRO. So we had to go in there really and reduce the budget by $90,000. It does impact the overall percentage. So we didn't make any changes to that budget that you at the workshop had approved. What we did was we gave you proposals if you would like us to reduce the budget by the 211,000 requested by the mayor and then present that budget to the city council. We gave you where we felt we could reduce the budget. So you have the 4% budget in front of you that came out of the budget workshop. Then you have another budget in front of you that reduces it by 211,000, of which 120,000 was picked up in the city budget. So we still get the same SRO. The city picked up that cost, so it was $90,000 that we had to remove from our budget. Does that make sense?
So that gives us two options, right? Like how the superintendent said, it's the budget that we had last discussed at our last workshop. It gives us the option of approving.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense to me. I need more clarity. The difference is not 90,000, the difference is 210,000. The difference between 2.123 million and
Yes.
1.912 million, so.
But we're no longer incurring the cost of the SRO. So the mayor could,
Sure, okay.
right, that's the difference. The $120,000 that was originally in our budget to pay for the SRO, the mayor has said the city will pay for the SRO. So that's why it affects the percentage we're asking for, it doesn't affect services, because we would be paying for it, now we're not paying for it. So technically, we had to reduce by $90,000, which came out of the salary and the benefits line item as a result of some new hires in the past.
Because
Like-
new hires are on a lower step.
Correct, we
And
have
so
some new.
therefore, you can manipulate the salary line item because we're not paying top step teacher salaries for new hires.
Correct,
And so over time, like Mr. Brandel was speaking of, like that compounding growth, right? If we minimize it this year, it's gonna always be minimized for the future, just like in the years past when they only asked for
Correct.
a 0.6% increase, it minimized it this year, right?
Yes, it's a
we're-
little less than we could ask for. Now, we would be able to ask for less next year than what we would. So instead of like 2.1 million, or 2.3 million next year, it would be less than that we could
And also
ask
this
for.
is- but
Not a
this is-
significant amount, but
But it
less
would
than
grow.
that.
This is the
every
mayor
year.
of our city asking some members of the school committee at this table to work with the city, which I think is very important that we are all able to do, to support one another, right? So I think that is an important thing to do. So it's just a little curveball because I just wasn't a part of the conversation until, 30 minutes ago. So I'm trying to just figure out so essentially the budget we would be voting on according to the agenda, which we received ahead of time, would be the budget for the 4%, not the 3.6%. Going back to my original question, is that correct?
That is, that's what you could vote for unless someone makes a different.
I just don't understand where we got like two budgets from. It just wasn't on the agenda.
It's, the budget's on the agenda, and this is the budget.
Oh, so we just,
Right,
so this
so-
changed up. When was the meeting with the mayor, actually?
Saturday morning.
Okay.
And we always meet with the mayor, because we are a department of the city, and the mayor our budget contributes to the overall city budget. So we always do meet with the mayor, to show him the budget, to go through the budget with him.
that's great, yeah.
In that meeting is when he asked us if we could reduce it. He's made cuts to the city side of the budget, and he asked if the school department could come up with any additional savings and again, agreed to take the SRO out of our budget. So that did save us $120,000 that we had budgeted for.
Right, I think just the issue is though, at least like speaking for myself, is until this meeting here tonight, I wasn't aware of this $214,000 item. I thought it was a different number, and I just feel like that doesn't really give me enough time to fully absorb this, and I just feel like the communication could have been a little better in regards to like informing the entire school committee kind of simultaneously about this, like even if it could have just been either like an email or something that could like have us all on the same page, so that way when we come here tonight, we know whether or not, when we see like on the agenda, action item, consider and vote to approve the proposed budget, we know whether it's the 4% that we requested at the last meeting, or if it's this, which is a completely different number from the last time I was at a school committee meeting.
Yeah, for sure, Max, I agree. I think what I would like is this, if this is just the language is the proposed fiscal '24 school budget, then what budget are you proposing we vote on tonight?
Well, Sandy, I have a question. If we was to, a few questions, please. At the last meeting, I thought the RSO was 60,000. Was that because it was always the 120 if we paid the whole thing?
Yeah, salary and benefits.
Okay, so the question I have now is if we approve this budget, because I had no idea to a half hour ago as well, the 211 and 214, if we was to approve this budget at the 4%, which I'm willing to support, if that goes in front of the council, does the council or the mayor automatically have the right to give us the 3.6? Absolutely, so see, I'm done, I have no problem with that, so easy this is what my team put together, this is what my team put together that I have nothing but confidence in, and I'm gonna continue supporting them. The mayor's not an educator, with no disrespect, I wouldn't want you dealing with a fire tonight, because you're an educator, so that's what I do. I knew nothing about this 3.6 reduction from a Saturday afternoon meeting, Saturday morning meeting. I got no email, I got nothing. My staff did a great job. Our staff did a great job. This city staff did a great job. I think it's a budget that if the superintendent Craig says we can manage with, I'm gonna support them. And I'm also gonna see if we can do a one-time fee of $200,000 or $300,000 to do some other work into these buildings. And when we go further with that, I got some other avenues that I'm gonna go down to try to get as more money as we go along, and I'll make that publicly very shortly, but, for now, I'm gonna support our team, my team at the 4%, which I thought we all agreed upon. And another question I have right now, we're actually missing a member, so I'm not even sure if Jess was aware of this meeting, so, that's another big issue with me. You know, she's served this community wholeheartedly for 8 years or so, and for her, maybe not even to know about a 3.6%, because I think she was on board with the 4, I just have, an issue with this, so I'm done talking for the rest of it. I'm supporting 4% and a one-time fee of about $200,000 or $300,000, so I'm done. And I want to thank all my staff and our staff that worked on this. And we can let the city take the money from the kids.
So
I ain't taking a
regarding,
penny.
sorry.
I'm done, thank you.
Okay. So regarding the meeting with the mayor, so after our last meeting, I believe we had given a heads up, not as to the date clearly, but as to our intent to definitely try and get, you know, the city on board and our mayor on board as to where we were at. They did attend our, you know, one city council member, Rick Lawson, and our mayor did attend our last meeting, but they weren't there for the entirety. So definitely in the interest, as our superintendent said, from making sure that we have the support and that we're able to you know, get the amount that we're asking for, unlike the previous, you know, any other previous times, to avoid that, then it coming back down to us to relook at. So, and also in the efforts to make sure that we have, you know, very clear transparency of as to, you know, what our budget looks like and where the city is at as well. The other thing I did want to mention is that because there is, you know, the budget that we had discussed the last time, at our last workshop, and we now have this with the reduction down to 3.6, where we were previously at a 4% request. It does make it a little bit more complicated as to, you know, which one do we want to vote for, because clearly the agenda just says school budget. So that gives us the option to either vote on the budget that has the 4.0%. It also gives us the option to vote on the 3.6, or it gives us the option to have a different percentage that the committee, or, you know, would prefer to vote on as well. We definitely have the liberty to make that adjustment regarding that percent decrease if we want, if we want to do that. That's the nice thing about having you know, these discussions, is definitely to, you know, get an understanding of where everyone is at, and then we can always, you know, get creative on what we get to vote on tonight, whether it's, you know, one of the two budgets that we have before us, or to request a different percentage based on the additional information that we got. Because my understanding also was, I didn't gather that it was a reduction request for 211,000 myself. So that being said, it's up to, I guess it's up to us to decide on which which percentage we want to move forward with, or if we want to create a new percentage as well tonight.
Is there a way that we could basically just approve everything about the mayor's requested budget, except we change the percentage either to say like 3.8 or 4.0, with the condition that it can, it wouldn't have to come back to us if they're only willing to do 3.6 no matter what, and then at least we requested the 4%, and if they only give 3.6, I mean, that
Yeah.
is what it is. I mean, so I think if anything, we should just do that, because I don't see why requesting less than the maximum, if it doesn't hurt us to do so, and it wouldn't have to come back to us in that instance, we may as well just do that.
Just to clarify, so are you saying you want to do a motion to do a 3.8, or are you saying 4% unless it gets sent back to us, I guess?
Well,
then do
I just
3.8.
wanted to make sure that like it was feasible, so that way if we like approve this motion, except amend it to make it 4.0 instead of 3.6, but we could also have like a condition in this motion where if the city council and mayor are only willing to do the 3.6%, it won't have to come back to us, because we'll still be okay with anywhere between 3.6 or 4.0%.
In that case, I believe it would still have to come down to us, though. If the 4.0 is what we're sending, if that's what we're approving, I don't think we can avoid it being sent back down to
So
us.
we just would reduce the line items, and, I mean, we've already shown you where we would reduce the line items. So the city council has the opportunity to cut the budget. Whatever we put forward to the city council, Mr. Ferrera is correct. We put a dollar amount to the city council. The city council can say, yes, we're going to give you the 4%, or no, we're reducing the school department's budget by, $200,000, $500,000, $1 million. They have the ability to do that when we bring it to the city council.
Okay, if we did approve this tonight, do we know when this would be brought before the city council?
So we deliver our budget, as soon as the school committee approves the budget, we sign it and we deliver it to City Hall. And then I don't believe that the city has started their budget workshops, so they also do them like by department too. So whenever the city council requested us to come forward, which I would assume would be sometime soon, August, September, we would go and we would do a presentation like we did for you tonight. And then the city council could fully fund it or make changes to it. That's entirely up to them. They have the ability to amend the budget.
So is the final budget that is being proposed to the school committee this evening, the budget for the 3.6% increase? Is that the final proposal?
So we gave you both, and we left it in your hands. So you saw what the 4%
But the
budget
vote
was.
the vote isn't to decide between one or the other. The vote is to approve the proposed fiscal year 2024.
Which
full
you have
budget.
two in front of you. You have we felt like we went through the
Can I-
workshop. We had a
Can I
budget.
make
see
a
what you're
motion
saying.
to vote, to make a vote?
Yep, no, definitely.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2024 budget with the 3.6% increase.
Is there a second?
Is that possible to do like is that like with the mindset that it could be like 4%, or just only like the maximum would be 3.6?
I make a motion to approve the budget presented this evening that includes the 3.6% increase.
With no second, the motion dies. Is there a different motion, whether for any percentage difference or amended language? Or as is?
Before,
I'll leave that up to the
I
committee.
just want to like make sure like one final time, like what I'm trying to say is if I make a motion in favor of the proposed budget, except instead of the 3.6%, we could do, let's say 3.8%, but it would be okay for the city council to make it 3.6% if they wish, but we would also still have the city cover the SRO position. Could all that be included in there?
So I understand what you're saying. So the superintendent is, I'm assuming, is going to also mention that there, there was a reduction in the event that there's a 3.8 budget proposed. The superintendent will be able to inform the city council that there was a reduction, and that way the city council can either approve the budget at a 3.8 in your example, or they can very much also increase it to the full 4.0. So just because our budget is a 3.8 doesn't not stop the city council from saying, no, we'd rather do a 4.0. And I don't, my understanding is that the superintendent would definitely be transparent as to that reduction, right? That wasn't,
We would present the
I'm
budget as we presented it to you tonight. In the same, I mean, our plan is to do the same exact budget presentation for the city council that we just did for you. So, and to give them all the documents that you have. I mean, we're being transparent with every single line item, and that would be our plan with the city council. I don't believe that we could put stipulations on the city council and say, if you fund the SRO, we can say, here is our budget, and they can, they can make changes, not to line items, they can make changes to the dollar amount.
I just have a question so I can try to, even though I understand this, I'm just trying to bring a little more light to it.
sorry, Tony, if I can just, does that answer your question, Max, before we head out?
Again, please,
I just want to confirm that Max's question was clarified before you go
Yes,
ahead. Sorry.
I mean, it does, but just, because I know, like Sandy, you said that it couldn't be, we can't bring that condition of the SRO to the city council, but wasn't what we were voting to approve part of the mayor's recommended budget to us had that condition in there? So weren't we voting for it based on that condition?
I think that was if we accepted the full condition.
The 3.6?
Right, if he needed $211,000
So that's what
in cuts,
that's what I'm
the police
saying,
officer
like-
would shift to their budget, and then we would make the additional $90,000 in cuts.
Right.
So I can't speak for the mayor, if we decide that we don't want to make the additional $90,000, whether he will continue to fund the SRO.
Yeah, that's what I was
don't
trying to
know.
figure out. Like, if we
Yeah.
requested 4% instead of the 3.6, would we still have that SRO option on the table?
I don't
That's what
think so.
And
that's what I
and that's-
wanted to know.
and that's.
Now that I know
that's
that,
key.
now I
Yeah.
understand. I
That's-
just wanted to clarify before, I
Right, it was
made a
a
decision. I didn't-
compromise, we'll take the SRO into the city budget, into the police budget, and then an additional $90,000 in cuts
In that
from the school
case-
department.
In that case, can we reintroduce that motion, if possible?
Which one?
The one that died?
Oh, okay. Before we do, is it okay if Tony?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Tony, would you like to?
Jen, just a question I got. On the agenda, it says, consider and vote to approve proposed FY 2024 school budget. I was under the impression the budget that we had is what we had talked about in our budget meeting. Now, on this, from the mayor, it's got mayor's request. So I'm saying, I'm looking at two different things here. The mayor's requesting this. He's requesting us to cut $211,000. $290. Oh, 90,000, I'm sorry. But our agenda says vote for the 2024 school budget. So since I never seen this we arrived tonight, I was under the impression I was coming in here to vote on the 2024 school budget, that we all supported the superintendent after 3 workshops. That's why I'm just gonna support what I supported after the 3rd workshop, and I just can't even look at saying support. It says right here, mayor's request. He's requesting that. I'm not here to vote on a request, which this is a request. This is the mayor's request. It says right here. Focus on that. Mayor's request. I'm not here to vote for the mayor's request. I'm here where it says vote on the East Providence School Department 2024 budget. So we can do it whatever way we want. If we support the 4%, the city council and the mayor can discuss it amongst themselves to say, we're gonna take this money from the kids. They have that legal right to do it. That's what they get elected to do. We did not get elected to take money from our kids. We got elected to support a great staff that says we needed X amount of dollars. We went through it 10 hours, and we were gonna support them. And now we're looking at, basically, it's to vote and request the mayor's request. I have a hard time even following that. So we can do whatever we want, but I'm gonna support our staff like I did after 3 budget workshops.
So if I made a motion to approve exactly like this says, the proposed fiscal year 2024 school budget, as is with the mayor's requests included in there and everything, could the city council decide, just I guess out of their own generosity, to make it 4% on their own instead of the 3.6? All right, then
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to approve the fiscal year 2024 school budget.
Just to make sure that we're clear, though, for which one? That, for the
For the
4.4%?
for the presentation
or the
that we had
3
tonight, for the one that says
4%?
mayor's request, but
3.6?
yes, but yeah. And that's, in the city council would still be
Would still have the
able to
option to do.
make it 4%
Or
because-
they can do it either way, right? They
Right.
can always decrease it, they can always increase it, they can go either way. So just to clarify.
Can you make
Sorry.
a motion for a motion that already was?
Yep, you
We
can,
can.
you can do it again, so I leave it up to, I know Max brought it up right now, but again, I leave it up to the members if there's a motion. If you can please restate it, whoever would like to.
Does anyone have any further comments or anything? All right, then I'll make the motion to approve the proposed fiscal year 2024 school budget.
For which percentage, just to make sure that we're clear.
For the presentation we had tonight, the mayor's request,
The 3.6?
yes.
Okay.
And if I may, if we can just say the total for that, so.
For that amount?
So that, for that budget, that would be $97,024,640. And what would we be asking for the city for is $1,912,531. Okay? Thank you.
Is there a second for for that same motion?
I'll second.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. The proposed 2024 school budget with the 3.6 request for a total of $97,024,640. The 3.6% is a specific amount of $1,912,531 is for that 3.6% request from the city. Next item, please.
Next item is announcements.
So we have the Bridgepoint Back to School Fair this Saturday here from 9 to 11. So if anyone is interested in helping out or if anyone needs school supplies, they will be here doing that. I believe they're doing haircuts and hearing tests. And there'll be all sorts of fun activities for children. So
Thank you. Next item.
Next item is adjournment.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All that say aye?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Have a good night.